Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley. I'm Pastor Gervais Charmley, and we have, in our travels in a southerly direction, crossed the border from Worcestershire into Herefordshire. And this is the church of St. James the Greater, Stanford Prior. It's a Norman building, mostly 12th century, with some interesting relics, notably a chair that, well, I'll talk about the chair when we get to it. It's another one of these Norman churches on a hill, and what a hilltop setting it is. Herefordshire is one of the most rural counties in England, and it is characterised by its hills, its orchards, its cider industry, which has left its mark very much on the county and, of course, on the churches, because many of the people who grew the hops and the apples for the cider were connected with the churches and gave generously. But we'll have a look around this Herefordshire church, the first one that we've done in this slow tour of English churches. So let's have a look around. As usual, then we begin in the tower, and you can see here, well, we begin at the west end, in this case, he's in the tower, and you can see here this very simple font, chalice style, probably 12th, 13th century. The walls are this slightly pink colour, which is authentic. It's a fairly recent restoration, and we have here the War Memorial and Roll of Honour. So you've got the Roll of Honour for those on active service then, and then you've got the memorial that is set up remembering them, and then you've got another War Memorial here. So that obviously comes from... It's interesting that you've got you've got the wooden one and then you've got the stone one. So the stone one is likely to be the later one. But they're basically the same thing. And I do wonder if one was originally in the school or something. There's a nice 17th century pulpit. It's noted that 17th century pulpits are, well, the oldest pulpits in Britain are late medieval, but 17th century pulpits are very common. This is a really good example. You can see it's got this bookboard running all the way around the top. Nice bit of carving, and we have here a memorial to John Freeman, later Stanford Court in this parish, who, to assiduity in business, united charity to the poor and sincerity as friends, died 17th of January 1802, aged 70. And then you've got a memorial here to the Reverend Henry William Welch, headmaster of Bromyard Grammar School, 1851 to 90, and vicar of this parish, 1880 to 1899, and he's in response to the restoration. The idea that you can have the headmaster of the Bromyard Grammar School, Bromyard is very close by, be a vicar, a full-time vicar, is kind of odd, but he's only a small parish here. Memorial here to Francis Freeman, late of Stanford Court in this parish, died 1815, and the memorial here is inscribed Philpot of Bromyard. And here we have the chair, the famous chair, St. Augustine's chair. So this is St. Augustine's chair. It's alleged to be the chair that Augustine of Canterbury sat in at the Synod of Whitby. This would make it, of course, Anglo-Saxon, and fairly early Anglo-Saxon. It is certainly a very old chair. There is sadly no truth to the rumour that whoever sits in it becomes Archbishop of Canterbury, although it would be nice if they did. But this is a tradition, the traditional chair upon which St. Augustine was seated, and it's 7th century, allegedly. Now, is it a 7th century chair? It's certainly a very old chair. It disappeared for a while, reappeared in a sale catalogue, and ended up being brought here. Obviously, it is firmly fixed down. Here we are looking west. It's funny to find something that's allegedly this enormously important relic here, but of course, at the Reformation, relics like that were very often flogged off. And there we have a nice piscine, a bit of 13th century work, I would say. A bit of 14th century work here as well. It's got a massive tower arch. And so yes, it's a very typical Herefordshire church, this one. Very simple tower, nave, chancel. And that's all. Victorian restoration. There's left really little in the way of the old furnishings, although there's another one that we'll have a look at shortly. And it's at the back, and again firmly fixed down. It is the old communion table, which is now just a table having been replaced by a Victorian altar. So that's inside here at Stanford Bishop, where the chair of St Augustine allegedly is located. I will say nothing as to its authenticity or otherwise. We pause in the porch because we've got a nice Norman doorway here. Some of it's been restored, but this is basically Norman. The door itself is Victorian, although the ironwork is quite good. Watch the step behind me as I go out. And there we have the top of the doorway. See again the use of these alternating types of stone, light and dark. And so here we are outside at Stanford Bishop, and you can see the porch here is Victorian, the building behind is largely Norman. And as we look around again, we'll see some of the Norman features. Nice Norman window there, of course, and this big tower. The tower is very typical for Herefordshire. It's not very tall, it's got this conical cap, or this pyramidal cap rather, upon it. But that's typical for this part of Britain. We're not awfully far from Wales here, and there's a certain almost Welshness about some of these buildings, although this is the English bit of Herefordshire. There's a more Welsh bit near the border. So let's have a look around the outside and see what we can see. And so we start here with the tower. You see this pyramidal cap with its weathercock on top, and that it's not much taller than the roof line of the nave. As I said, this is typical of Herefordshire. This is something that you will find in this part of England. As we approach, you see that Norman window with its the top part is carved out of a single chunk of stone, and the nave itself is mostly Norman. You can see there's a line of different type of stonework at the top, which suggests the roof line has been altered. The chancel, that's another Norman window there, may have been enlarged in the 13th century, probably was, they generally are. The stonework here it's fairly small stones and would originally have been rendered. You can still see that at one of the local churches, well, some of the local churches around here. Not here. Fairly small east window, probably 13th, 14th century, but medieval, not Victorian. And around here on the north side, you've got that single big window, and there you can see up there the weathercock. So it's a very simple example of a massive yew tree there. You often find these very old yew trees, and that one's going to be very, very old. You often find them in churchyards. But it's a lovely example of this typical Herefordshire church here. The only particularly exciting thing is the traditional chair of St Augustine, but and I say also Augustine of Canterbury. He's the man who was sent over by Gregory the Great as a missionary, and the Synod of Whitby was where the English church decided to follow Rome rather than to continue in a more Celtic style. Now when I say follow Rome, of course, this is Gregory the Great's Rome. This is not what Rome later became. Another one of these nice Norman windows. A very, very simple cap there. Yes, it's uneven lump of stone that's just been shaped where it needs to be, and the rest has just been inserted into this rubble wall. Because the wall is rubble, it doesn't need shaped stonework to fit into it. So That is this very simple building here on its hill. You can see there this view here, so we'll just head out here again so you can see this. We're on a hill up here at Stanford Bishop. Stanford Bishop is what they call a dispersed settlement, which means that it's not a village with a centre, but it's a village where there's lots of little random groups of houses, and the church up here on the hill, so that all the random groups of houses round about can see where it is. So there we have it, Stanford Bishop. Of course, the bishop refers to the fact that the Bishop of Hereford, most likely, on the borders, Hereford, Worcester, but it's in Herefordshire, so it's most likely the Bishop of Hereford was the lord of the manor here. But this was his manor, and it would have been administered by a steward for him. Well, thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you until next time.